I couldn't believe the harsh words that pierced the air like a sudden storm. "I don't like anything about you, Mother. We want to live with our family alone, so get out." The venom in my eldest son's wife's voice left me stunned, my heart racing with shock and disbelief. Those cruel words echoed painfully, dragging me back to a haunting memory, the same bitter demand I faced years ago when I was forced to leave my parents' home, alone and heartbroken. Anger surged through me like a tidal wave at the thought of being driven out of this home too, the place I'd poured my love and care into. "Well, I'll leave then," I declared, my voice trembling with resolve as I gathered my belongings, determined to walk away. That moment was the final straw. I swore to myself I'd never forgive my oldest son's wife, Jessica, for her callous words. It was time to put a carefully crafted plan into action, one that would turn the tables on my daughter-in-law and reclaim my peace. My name is Sandra Clark, and I'm turning 61 this year. Though I'm technically retired, I'm fortunate to still be working, not chained to a desk, but dropping into the office occasionally for meetings or joining them remotely from the comfort of home. My oldest son, however, seems to cling to the outdated notion that I'm no longer working, as if my days are spent idling away. I became a widow in my 40s, a chapter of my life that shaped me profoundly. Currently, I live with my oldest son and his wife, Jessica, in my parents' old house, a charming but aging property with sprawling grounds that I've always cherished, despite its quirks and challenges. Leaving that home was never easy, not because of financial hardship. My late husband's insurance payout remains largely untouched, ensuring a comfortable lifestyle with no worries about my twilight years, but because of the emotional ties I held to the place. Yet, despite this seemingly carefree life, one persistent worry gnaws at me: my son's wife, Jessica. Jessica has a strong-willed personality, to put it mildly, and our clashes have become a regular occurrence. This tension didn't start recently. It began the moment she entered our lives. I'll never forget the day she arrived to announce their engagement, strutting and wearing a tracksuit that looked like it belonged in a high school gym class. She claimed she wanted me to see her without pretense, but to me, it was an unthinkable lack of decorum. Some might call it bold. I saw it as a baffling disregard for common sense. Jessica is argumentative, articulate to a fault, and her sharp tongue makes every disagreement a battle. I often wondered why my son chose her. Later, I learned she was the one who pursued him, her striking beauty likely captivating my naive, sheltered son. Even after their marriage, her behavior remained unchanged, unpretentious if you're generous, utterly lacking in tact if you're honest. I wanted to oppose their union, but I held my tongue, convincing myself it was the marriage my son wanted. Now, I'm reaping the consequences of that restraint. When my son insisted we live together after the wedding, I was surprised to learn Jessica supported the idea. The reason became clear soon enough. Jessica, a full-time housewife who quit her job upon marrying, refused to lift a finger for household chores. Cleaning, laundry, meal preparation, she left it all to me, despite my remote work keeping me busier than her idle days. Her snide comments about me playing around on the computer while I worked grated on my nerves. I brushed them off with a forced laugh, avoiding arguments, but the irritation simmered beneath the surface. One day, I mustered the courage to ask, "Jessica, you seem to have plenty of spare time. Could you help with the cleaning?" Her response was a masterclass in audacity. With a dramatic sigh and a deeply disgusted expression, she said, "Mother, I don't do housework for your sake. Why don't you understand? It's sad you can't appreciate my thoughtfulness." According to her warped logic, if she did the chores, it would rob me of my only job, leaving me sedentary and at risk of dementia. Her ridiculous reasoning gave me a headache, but I was too stunned to respond. "I agreed to live together to make sure you don't slack off, Mother," she added with a smug half-smile. I was speechless, utterly dumbfounded by her gall. Regret washed over me like a cold wave. Every day, I wished I'd stayed separate, sparing myself the agony of seeing her lounging while I toiled under her watchful eye. It was unbearable. Finally, I reached my breaking point and decided to speak with my son, not to complain about Jessica, but to announce my decision to move out. The old house, with its uneven floors and countless steps, had become a physical burden, especially after I injured my back last year. I explained the challenges of living there, and soon after, I found a spacious rental apartment tailored to my needs, large enough for my grandchildren to visit someday. I customized the interior to my taste, creating my own sanctuary, a castle of my own making. But my joy was short-lived. Jessica began showing up at my new apartment every day, lounging on my couch until nightfall. "This place is really nice, isn't it, Mother?" "A bit too big for you, don't you think?" she'd say, her tone dripping with condescension. "Come back to the old house and do the chores. It's for your health and longevity." Unbelievably, she was urging me to return to the old house to slave away during the day, as if my new home was a luxury I didn't deserve. Her self-centered attitude made my head spin. "I've already moved out, Jessica," I replied firmly. "You need to step up as the wife. I handle all the chores here, and my annual checkups are perfect. There's nothing for you to worry about." She turned away, pretending not to hear, her usual tactic for dodging anything inconvenient. Her visits became relentless. One day, she even stayed overnight, claiming it was too much hassle to walk the 15 minutes back to the old house. My son had suggested I live near my parents' home out of concern, a gesture that now felt bittersweet. Then came the final straw. Returning from a rare business outing, I found Jessica sprawled on my floor, watching TV, having let herself in with the spare key I'd given my son for emergencies. "Welcome back," she said casually, not even bothering to get up. "Jessica, that key is for emergencies, not for you to barge in when I'm not home," I said, my discomfort boiling over. For the first time, I spoke sternly, and she seemed taken aback, shooting me an annoyed glance. But I held her gaze, refusing to back down. "You're such a stingy mother-in-law." "I can't stand that about you," she yelled, her voice sharp with frustration. "I can't stand anything about you. We're a family, so you should leave." She tried to usher me to the door, as if my own apartment was hers to claim. It became clear she resented me living in comfort while she and my son remained in the old house, which she deemed unfair. "The rent for this place is paid by James, isn't it?" she snapped. "It wouldn't be strange for us, his family, to live here. That's what living beyond your means looks like." Her delusion that my son was footing the bill explained her constant intrusions. She saw the apartment as rightfully hers. "All right, I will leave," I retorted, staring her down with steely determination. "I promise to move my belongings out within 3 days." Skeptical, she demanded I call a moving company in front of her. I did, scheduling the movers for 2 days later. As she left, smugly satisfied, I watched her go and began formulating a plan that would change everything. I moved out as promised, but not to just anywhere. My new home was an apartment designed for seniors, a temporary haven I'd try for 2 weeks. I handed over the keys and lease documents to Jessica, arranging for the contract to be transferred through the real estate agent to the landlord, who was flexible due to our long acquaintance. My son was furious with Jessica for driving me out, even contemplating divorce, but she seemed unfazed, gleefully declaring she'd live alone in my apartment. "Well then, let's live separately," she said, her brazen attitude leaving me speechless. But I knew the truth would hit her soon. 5 days later, my phone rang repeatedly. It was Jessica. I had anticipated this moment and had a recorder ready. "Excuse me, Mother. What's the deal with the rent for this apartment? Why do I have to pay it?" "This isn't right," she ranted, her voice frantic. "Oh, Jessica, aren't you the current leaseholder? It's only right that you pay. Is there a problem?" I replied, my tone calm and deliberate, knowing it would rattle her further. "But didn't James pay the rent here?" "We're not even divorced yet, so shouldn't he cover it?" she demanded, her agitation growing. I revealed the truth. My son had never paid the rent. I had been financially supporting him, covering the costs myself as a consultant and industry advisor, earning far more than he did. Jessica's extravagant spending had strained his finances, and I'd been quietly helping him manage her debts. "So, it's a misunderstanding, Jessica. I was the one paying the rent, not James." "Not a dime came from him," I said, relishing her shock. She stammered, then hung up, clearly rattled. I immediately shared the recorded conversation with my son, who was at his breaking point. "I've been putting up with her for too long, and I'm done," he said, exhausted from repaying her debts. As a parent, I couldn't help but support him, despite what others might call softness. "I'll divorce her." "I'm tired too," he said quietly. I laid out my plan. He'd take 3 days of paid leave, discreetly move his belongings to a new single-family home I'd secured, a place Jessica knew nothing about, and we'd avoid tipping her off with large moving trucks. The plan unfolded perfectly. 3 days later, Jessica called again, her voice bordering on hysteria. "Mother, our house is up for sale, and my parents said my belongings arrived at their house." What does this mean? My son had followed my instructions, sending her things to her parents' home and listing the old house for sale, leaving it empty. The landlord told me if I can't pay the rent, I should leave. I thought I should consult with James, but when I got home, there were chains and a padlock on the gate. I couldn't get in, and there's a for sale sign, she cried, nearly incoherent. "Jessica, there are a few things I need to correct," I began, my voice steady as I prepared to vent years of pent-up stress. "Firstly, I'm no longer your mother-in-law. James filed for divorce yesterday, and you signed the papers, didn't you? We're strangers now." Jessica had a habit of threatening divorce to control my son, but he'd finally turned the tables, signing her papers and submitting them. "You always said you could divorce anytime, Jessica. Aren't you satisfied now?" I said, sensing her frustration as she struggled to respond. "Besides, you can't live in that apartment without working, can you? Moving costs money, and you're in no position to manage." She erupted, screaming that she married my son for my late husband's inheritance, which I controlled entirely. Her dreams of a lavish life had crumbled. I let her rant for 15 minutes, recording every word as evidence for a potential divorce settlement. When she finally begged for help, claiming her family had disowned her due to her reckless spending, I felt a pang of pity, but stood firm. "Apologizing now won't change anything, Jessica. We're strangers. Good luck with your life," I said, ending the call with a sense of relief. Jessica caused a scene at my son's workplace, escalating until the police were called. Unable to pay the apartment's rent, she found the locks changed by the landlord. We'd switched our phone numbers, leaving her unable to reach us. Her disowned family refused her entry, leaving her belongings soaked in the rain. Rumors reached me that she was staying in a shelter for the homeless. Her once glamorous appearance faded, her hair graying, her skin dull, a stark reminder of how quickly circumstances can change. I started anew in a duplex I purchased with my husband's inheritance, a home where my son could join me for dinner but maintain his independence. The proceeds from my parents' home sale are saved for his future, perhaps for a new wife or grandchildren. In my garden, I tend to young trees and herbs, embracing a life filled with hope and peace, free from Jessica's shadow. My name is Lisa, and it's been just over a year since I married my wonderful husband, Robert. We've been living happily in a cozy, affordable apartment, dreaming of the day we'll move into a newly built detached home. Robert's parents live just a 5-minute walk away, but they rarely visit, respecting our space. My mom doesn't want to meddle in her son's marriage, Robert once told me, and I found myself admiring my mother-in-law's restraint. For most women, a meddling mother-in-law is a top concern after marriage, but I felt blessed to dodge that worry. My parents always taught me, if someone picks on you, give it back twice as hard, but with my mother-in-law's hands-off approach, I could live stress-free, confident I wouldn't need to fight that battle. As our careers flourished, Robert and I began discussing buying a house, envisioning a future with room for children. My parents, hearing our plans, made an incredible offer. "We've always thought if you two decided to build a house, we'd give you some of our land. Feel free to use it." Thanks to a windfall my grandfather received years ago, they owned valuable land, and when they consulted him, he said, "I've passed it on to you, so do as you please." Robert was overwhelmed with gratitude. "Let's take advantage of their generosity," he said. "I'll never thank your parents or your grandpa enough. It's his land, after all." We spent weekends visiting showrooms, touring our boss's grand mansion, and meeting agents to explore new residences. Planning was exhilarating, each step bringing us closer to our dream. But one day, a call from my mother-in-law shattered our blissful momentum. Robert answered, and I saw his face tighten as she spoke. Apparently, she'd heard about our plans to build a house and suggested, if you're building, why not make it a duplex so we can live together? Her proposal stunned us. We'd never imagined our non-intrusive mother-in-law would want to share our home. Robert mumbled a vague response, dodging the question, but the idea lingered like an unwelcome guest. A duplex would mean replanning everything, sacrificing the room we'd reserved for a future child. Rejecting her outright risked straining our relationship, leaving us both perplexed and uneasy. At our monthly family dinner, she brought it up again, this time with Robert's brother, Mark, a single father, present. Have you thought about our duplex idea? It's a fantastic plan, she pressed, her enthusiasm relentless. We'll contribute financially, and selling our place will bring in a tidy sum. Plus, with kids on the way eventually, wouldn't it be helpful to have us next door? It's all upsides. She rattled off benefits rapid fire, barely letting me get a word in. I tried to interject, acknowledging the appeal of help with future children and financial support, but I believed Robert and I could handle those challenges ourselves. Relying on my own parents felt safer than risking tension with her. Seeing my hesitation, she added, "Is it really that bad to live with us? I thought you didn't hate us, but maybe I was wrong." Her tone turned plaintive, almost manipulative, and I hurriedly left, pretending not to hear. Her daily barrage continued, stressing me to the breaking point. Robert wavered, saying living together isn't bad. It'd be reassuring to have them around, but I don't want to lose our alone time either. After much soul-searching, we decided to decline her offer, prioritizing our independence. Surely, if we explained calmly, she'd understand. But at the next family dinner, before we could share our decision, she interrupted, "Oh, about the duplex. We're moving forward with the plan." Before we could react, she added, "And Mark's moving in too. He's a single dad, and it's tough, right? Let's help him out with his kid. Plus, it'll give you experience for your own children. You should definitely do it." Her words left us speechless, our purpose forgotten. She took our silence as agreement and barreled ahead with construction, incorporating her husband's and Mark's input. We tried repeatedly to voice our objections, but they dismissed us with, "We're busy now, let's talk later." The duplex plans advanced, funded by our in-laws, so we faced no financial burden, but the thought of living with them and Mark, plus caring for his child, weighed heavily on me. Robert, defeated, said, "There's nothing we can do now. Let's give up." I felt resistance was futile too. We finalized blueprints and chose interior details, but the promised funds from my in-laws never materialized. When Robert called his mother, she said, "Something came up and I need money immediately. Could you cover it? I promise to pay you back in a month." With the project too far along to cancel, we reluctantly covered the costs, though her selfish behavior infuriated us. I consulted my parents, who offered to cover the expenses, saying, "We were giving you the land anyway, and if they're promising to pay later, we'll handle it. Your happiness matters most. Don't let this duplex plan ruin your dream home." My mother added with a smirk, "Plus, if they're always around, it'll be hard for me to visit and hog the grandkids." With their support, construction continued, and our dream home was completed. But a month later, my in-laws still hadn't paid. They began moving their belongings in before us, claiming rooms meant for our future children. My mother-in-law even hosted a housewarming party, boasting, "This is our dream duplex. It's small, but we have a wonderful garden. I'll share the vegetables when they're ready." Her friends, unaware of the truth, praised the house. 2 months passed, then 3, then 6, with no payment. When Robert confronted them, they brushed him off with "soon, very soon." Then, shockingly, my mother-in-law announced, "We're not selling our house. Mark and his kids will live there." She had no intention of paying. When she said, "This house is too cramped with you two here. Can you move out?" "I want to use it freely for friends," Robert snapped. "That's not the deal. Why should we leave our own house?" She retorted, "You're both working, hardly home, and you don't have kids. Lisa's family is rich, right? You can afford another house." Her audacity left us speechless. Her daily harassment escalated, with nasty comments like, "If you don't want to be bullied as a daughter-in-law, move out." I'd naively thought I'd avoid mother-in-law drama, but it was overwhelming. Recalling my parents' advice to fight back, I devised a plan with Robert, my parents, and grandfather. We told my mother-in-law, "We're moving out. You'll be happier inviting friends over." Her face lit up with glee. We moved to a new apartment, reminiscent of our newlywed days, and secretly listed the house for sale. While my in-laws were at a theme park with Mark's kids, we had movers pack our belongings swiftly. When they returned, my mother-in-law screamed, "What happened? Where are things?" Robert calmly explained, "Everything's on the trucks, with the destination noted. It's small, but enough for you. This house is sold. It's someone else's now. Take care." They were stunned, protesting. It was our house. But Robert clarified, the property was in Lisa's parents' name. "We're the owners, and you haven't paid a dime. You should be ashamed." We revealed they'd been selling items stolen from me, using the money for themselves. "Consider it severance pay," Robert said as we left, severing ties. My grandfather gifted us more land and covered half the costs for a new single-family home, far from the city, but filled with fresh air and kind neighbors. We're free from my in-laws, who were refused help by my parents and Mark's new wife. With a security system and a guard dog, we're building a happy future, ready for children, and no one will disturb our peace. My name is Emma, and ever since I dropped out of high school, I've poured my heart into my passion. It wasn't an easy choice, but I had a dream I couldn't ignore. My parents, though worried, stood by me, their unwavering support shaping who I am today. Recently, they shared their plan to let go of our family home, a single-family house passed down from my grandparents. It's been renovated over the years, but age has taken its toll, and with my parents growing older, they're considering a barrier-free apartment and demolishing the old house. I proposed we live together, knowing I might marry someday but wanting to repay their support. We moved into a spacious new apartment with stunning views and a hobby room, where my parents delight in the fresh start. But peace was disrupted by a call from my younger sister, Jane, with whom I've had a strained relationship for years. When I dropped out of high school, Jane was furious, ashamed of me. "Why are you quitting, Emma?" "I don't want my friends to know my sister's a dropout. Pretend we don't know each other," she snapped. Jane, a high achiever at a top-ranked school, always looked down on me, mocking me with, "Emma is stupid." She claimed my dreams were doomed and my choice burdened our parents. Tired of her taunts, I left home as soon as I earned money from part-time jobs. 10 years later, Jane had also left, and we'd had no contact. When our parents considered demolishing the family home, they consulted Jane, who dismissed it with, "I don't care about that old house. Do whatever you want." Then Jane called, revealing she'd married without telling our parents. "You're in a condo now, right? Come visit with your husband," my mother said, stunned but inviting. Jane brushed it off casually. "Didn't I mention it?" Oddly, she had no wedding ceremony, despite her childhood dreams of a princess-like wedding. Her husband, Scott, worked at her prestigious company, so money wasn't the issue, making her choice puzzling. When they visited, Jane gushed, "Wow, such a large, clean room. The view is amazing." Scott, wearing an expensive watch, barely met our eyes, exploring the apartment with Jane. "Your parents are amazing, the station's close, and there's a shopping mall nearby," Scott said. Jane sneered, "All thanks to Emma," then mocked, "Really? You have an older sister?" I didn't notice. I never thought such a beautiful room would have an older sister living here. When my father tried to defend me, Jane ignored him, pointing at me to Scott. "Do you believe this ugly woman is my sister?" Scott laughed. "You two look nothing alike." She couldn't even graduate high school. Their mockery stung, but Jane continued, opening my room and scoffing at my comic book collection. "What's the point of hoarding these? It's creepy." Still into nerdy stuff. As a comic book artist, I dropped out to pursue my passion, and my room reflected that. Jane, who despised such subcultures, couldn't understand me, just as I couldn't fathom her heavy mascara. "These are my references," I said. "You're probably not even successful, mooching off mom and dad. Just get out," Jane demanded. Scott and I will live here. You're not needed anymore. Aren't you embarrassed? Furious but composed, I agreed. All right, I'll move out in a few days. You and Scott can live here, but I'm not giving you money. They left triumphantly, saying, next time, we're moving in. My parents urged me to stay, but I had a plan for revenge. I moved out promptly, staying with my boyfriend, Liam, as we planned our future. A month later, Jane called, near tears. Emma, the property management company says they haven't received the rent. They'll kick me out. Why aren't you paying? I replied, I don't live there anymore, so why would I pay? You wanted to take care of Mom and Dad, right? She insisted I'd been paying to show gratitude, but I clarified, I have no obligation now. You and Scott work for top companies, pay your own rent. Jane's branded clothes and Scott's luxury watch hinted at their financial strain. You can't pay, can you? I pressed. You've left all the housework to Mom. Scott, startled to see Liam, my voice actor boyfriend, stammered. Liam revealed we were dating with marriage in mind, and that I'd created a socially influential anime, a comic series from a boys' magazine. Jane, who'd mocked my passion, turned pale, realizing my success. If you can't pay, leave, I said. You've been gambling, haven't you? Your salaries go to debt. They admitted to squandering money on slot machines and borrowing from shady sources. I refused to help, demanding they leave to spare our parents further trouble. They reluctantly agreed. My parents moved to a new apartment I bought, tearfully grateful for my support. Jane and Scott, struggling with debt, paid the 1 month's rent I fronted only after I contacted their workplace, exposing their financial woes. I married Liam, blessed by our parents, and we're thriving while Jane and Scott face their consequences. As siblings, I wish them strength, but I owe them no mercy. My name is Sarah, and my wedding day, meant to be a celebration of love, turned into a nightmare. I'm going to make my wife work with only $50 for groceries every month, my husband, Jack, declared proudly during his speech, shattering the joyous atmosphere. The room froze, guests murmuring in shock. I'm so lucky to have such a cheap maid, he added, grinning as if it were a joke. I stood there, horrified, my heart sinking as I realized his true intentions. A stern voice cut through the tension. Is that all you wanted to say, you bastard? My father, Robert, strode toward us, his face livid with fury. I met Jack in college, where we were classmates. After losing touch post-graduation, he hosted a reunion at 24, where he cared for me when I drank too much, charming me with his kindness. He confessed he'd liked me since college, and we soon started dating. When he proposed at 25, I was thrilled. Jack, heir to a major corporation, never boasted, and his parents seemed kind when we met. My father, a small business owner who'd faced hardships, was relieved I'd found stability. Wedding planning was blissful until Jack's true colors emerged. One evening, he said, Sarah, your cooking is delicious. You'd do great as a full-time housewife. Stunned, I replied, I plan to keep working. He brushed it off, suggesting part-time work for pocket money while managing the house and future kids. I'll train a successor for the company, so leave the money-making to me, he said cheerfully. I insisted on working full-time, even with kids, but his frown hinted at displeasure. Reluctantly, he agreed, saying, women feel uneasy without a connection to society, so do your best with housework and child care. His words fell off, but my friends reassured me he cared. Later, he offered to manage finances, promising to share housework, which moved me. But at our wedding, his $50 grocery bombshell revealed his deceit. You agreed I'd manage finances, he said when I protested. His chilling whisper, we're bound by this ceremony. It's too late to cancel, felt like a threat. Tears welled as I realized I'd married a man who saw me as a servant. My father's confrontation stopped Jack's tirade. How dare you treat my daughter like this, he roared. Jack sneered, don't get cocky, old man. I'm the successor to a major corporation. Your small company is nothing. A shattering glass interrupted Jack's father, pale with panic, shouted, Stop it, Jack. Don't cross that man. To Jack's shock, my father was a major shareholder in his father's company, holding significant influence. Jack's father had orchestrated our relationship to access my father's patents, saving millions. Jack admitted he never loved me, calling me mediocre compared to a beautiful heiress he was meant to marry. Enraged, I declared, "I'll sue you and annul this marriage." This is economic abuse. My father vowed to take measures against their company. Jack and his father begged for mercy, but I walked away, canceling the wedding and returning guests' gifts. With a skilled lawyer, I sued Jack, who bore the wedding costs and paid compensation. His actions cost him his CEO prospects and his parents' support. Fired after causing a workplace scene, he's now jobless, his life in ruins. I'm dating a sincere man from my father's company, planning to marry next year. I escaped a miserable marriage, reclaiming my future with hope and strength. Please feel free to comment below if you liked this. Remember to like and subscribers for more.